Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee, and feels like we got a hot day coming. Today's the 19th of August. It's about 7. It's roughly 7:45. A couple of minutes past, so I guess it's got about 13 minutes before 8 in the morning. It's 77 degrees and high at 92. Not that bad. Not that bad, but then we're expected to go to 97 tomorrow, then 98, then back to the low 90s, and actually we're not having a very hard August. Usually August is murder. Not that hard. I mean, and I don't know what to make of it. I think it's relevant that it's not as punishing as it usually is. I call the weather in Israel punishment weather. When I read the New Testament, it doesn't give me the impression that the weather was that way. I don't get that impression. I never see them anywhere in the New Testament running around in snow in Jerusalem, where I've been in waist-deep snow in Jerusalem, so something's different. Okay, so today we're going to talk about current events with Iran quickly. Not a lot's happening. Okay, they still occasionally hit ships. Somebody shot at a cruise ship by Oman, which I'll cover. Didn't hit it, and they did send 2 missiles into the UAE. So I doubt there's a treaty with the UAE now. And we're going to cover the next temple in the Bible. We're going to cover all sorts of stuff. We're going to cover the words abomination and desolation is not really what the original Greek and Hebrew text means. Those words are church words. We're going to cover the real words, and we're going to get a lot of eye-opening stuff today on the next temple. Okay? All right. And that's going to be the bulk of what we're going to do today. Uh-oh, what do I got here? Delivery. Yes. Yeah. Who's this? Yeah. Who? Oh, okay. Are you by my house now? Okay. I need yes, Sadhavrit. Are you Perea Elite Akshav? Derek Hashaket? No, I don't. I don't have that. Ain that telephone, Shali. Uh, I can go. I need Bo Rachov Derek Hashaked. Is that this? You want to talk English? Okay. Can I go to? If I go to the street Derek Hashaked, you'll see me. We could do it that way. Okay. I need Bo Akshav Bakuts. Okay. 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 I go right now. Okay. Bye. Bye. Guys, I've got to get out there. I got an important delivery of supplements. Um, I don't know how long it'll take. Probably 2 or 3 minutes. I'm sorry. We'll wait for people to come in. I need to go out there. This is Israel, and you work for the drivers. Sorry, guys. That's life in Israel. I can't help it. I don't have a staff that's gonna go out there and get things like this, so it's me. So anyway, at least that was before we got started. So let me go into the live stream and make sure everything's working good, and then we'll get started. Okay. All right. I got a juvenile delinquent I gotta get rid of. Well, we got our hecklers today. They tell you to shut your mouth because they're Satan bots. And that's why they tell you that usually, or they just don't know any better. Okay, I'm going to put a post up real quick, and then we'll get going. They're not worth your time or attention, believe me. They're pawns. Okay, I pinned this up and make sure. Oh, Mississippi. Okay, I think we're good. And I'm going to do some praise now, which will really get the Satan bots mad. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 I'll say a little prayer for us. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for a good live stream, good anointing, good teaching that the people can understand. on the current events and, of course, from the Bible. And I pray you would help all of us and we would have a good time and have no difficulties, technical, sabotage, or otherwise. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Do we have any prayer requests? I think not, but I would do good to check. It appears that whoops, what happened here? Let me fix it. I don't think we do. Let me double check. Okay, no prayer requests. Well, so Iran shot 2 missiles at the UAE. I don't know if there was any damage. I don't know why. We thought that the UAE reached some sort of a ceasefire truce arrangement with Iran, but apparently they did not. They may have, and then Trump talked them out of it, or maybe they never did. We don't know. We know their executive jet was going back and forth with some high-ranking dignitaries, and apparently nothing came of it. Oh, they did intercept the missiles. The UAE took the missiles down. And they're saying it was launched by the Houthis. Well, look, if the Houthis shot at the UAE, you better believe Iran knew about it. And they're a satellite of, or a puppet of Iran, so it's the same thing as Iran doing it. Iran probably figured it was safer to have the Houthis do it because then Trump wouldn't start attacking them again. Mike Huckabee says that contrary to plenty of fake news making the rounds, blah, 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 there is what is he saying? He's saying that fake news making the rounds online, there is disagreement between Israel and Washington regarding Hamas and the future of Gaza, but I believe he's trying to say that they're actually getting along, but there is some disagreement there. So I don't know what he's trying to say, but they're not, Netanyahu and Trump are not exactly eye to eye, but they're not at odds with each other either. This is more stupidity. Senior military officers from Uganda and Burundi visited the U.S.-led Civil Military Coordination Center in Israel as part of a advanced talk regarding sending hundreds of troops to Gaza for the International Stability Force. Well, Hamas will chew them up and spit them out. Hamas are battle-hardened, seasoned killers, and these guys are pretty soft. I don't know what'll happen. If they try to disarm Hamas, it'll get bloody. If Hamas is disarmed and they come, that'll work. I mean, anybody could be there. You know, you could bring a police department from, Trinidad or something, and it would work, Israel prefers to have African troops overseeing Gaza, the transition. They are seen as more likely to actually enforce the agreement if Hamas gets out of line. Yeah, might work. But you see, why is Trump cutting them slack? Why is he trying to keep them alive and prospering in Gaza? Other than, and I mean, you got to be an idiot to realize they're just going to rebuild and attack Israel again. And you got to be an idiot to realize that Egypt's going to help them smuggle weapons in again. So you need to have somebody patrolling the borders by Egypt with Gaza and looking for trucks and things like that all of a sudden popping up and patrolling and looking for tunnels. Okay? Otherwise, it happens again. None of the other Arab states will take these Palestinians in Gaza in. Why? They want them staying there attacking Israel. That's why. Netanyahu met for 4 hours with U.S. envoy Kushner to discuss advancing Trump's Gaza peace plan. Kushner never got a deal done in his life that I know of, and it's nepotism. The kid is a son-in-law of Donald Trump, and he's going to talk to Netanyahu. He doesn't know what he's doing, this kid. His father gave him roughly 250,000 apartments this kid owns. Could you imagine having 250,000 people pay you rent every month? You can't imagine that, can you? No. You'd have to have a room of bookkeepers and accountants just to handle the money coming in and depositing it in the bank. $250,000 checks would be like a huge big box, like a moving box, a huge one, full of checks every month. This is a normal person? No. In remarks to Fox News later in the day, when he wasn't with Netanyahu apparently, Kushner said, "We will not allow Gaza to be rebuilt until demilitarization occurs." That's fine. Hamas will just sit there and it won't get rebuilt. That's not going to work. That's been going on already for like what, a year? We are not going to restrict Israel's ability to defend itself against imminent threats. Kushner added that it's hard to trust Hamas, but Washington is going to give them a chance if Hamas does not fulfill its commitment. Washington's going to give them a chance. Why always give them a chance? They've said many times they want to do October 7th again and kill us, and he wants to give them a chance. He's a moron. Hamas does not fulfill its commitments. 99.99% chance they won't. Nothing's impossible, so I wouldn't say 100%. However, Israel will have U.S. backing to go finish the job in the appropriate way. Well, what is the appropriate way? You're not going to see them disarm because Trump's too weak. They're not afraid of him. They're not going to listen to him. Just like Iran doesn't believe him. He's lost his street creds. So his ability to intimidate and threaten is about worthless. Nobody believes him. So I think with the two missiles, one fell outside the territorial waters, while another fell outside and I don't know what outside means now, but I believe they intercepted at least one of them or something. But this just goes to show you, Iran is constantly attacking somebody, well, using the Houthis as, same thing as Iran. There's been no comment from Iran on the situation. Israel struck Syria, I think it was yesterday, because Turkey is putting bases in there, and they put an air base in, I believe it was an air base, but a military base close to Israel, and it was a red line, and Netanyahu was saying Syria's breaking their agreement, so we did attack them to straighten them out. We did not warn Turkey about the strike, but we did warn the United States before we did the strike. So Turkey is getting more and more angry. What Turkey is scared badly about is Israel's going to take Lebanon out, which is prophecy. And then they're going to be on a border with Turkey. And then we're going to have drones, missiles, tanks, artillery, soldiers on the border. And we'll be eavesdropping on everything Turkey does. And it's going to be a problem for them. This is a good thing, what's going on in Syria. Syria turning against Trump and turning against Israel with Turkey. It's a very good thing because it takes us closer to Zechariah 12. Syria has to be in this mess. So having the Russian troops come and fill those two bases near Latakia, the base on the Mediterranean, and the air base, which is really walking distance from it, a long walk, but walking distance, I would say, and having this idiot Giuliani from Al Qaeda there, and all the other problems, it's good. It's given us another box checked for Zechariah 12. And if you go by Psalm 83, which is really a prayer, not a prophecy, it does say the Hittites, and the Hittites is Turkey. So things are getting closer. I'm happy. I really am. I'm very happy. Egypt already has over 100,000 soldiers in violation of treaty in the Sinai Peninsulas. They got tanks, artillery, they've built bases, so they're ready to go. Okay? I mean, this is filling up. It's getting there. Should be happy, really. I mean, a lot of you think I'm crazy, but a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Syria wanted away from Trump, so bringing Russia in with Russian aircraft, Russian Navy boats, Russian soldiers, it gives him a sense of security. The problem this mental midget has is Russia's got a deep alliance with Iran, and he might throw Giuliani under the bus and bring Iran into Syria. And that'll really push us close to Zechariah 12, but I don't see it. I don't think Trump will let it happen. I don't think Israel would either. Hamas along with Qatar. Wow, the vermin in Qatar are friends with Hamas. They issue a dual statement condemning Israel's strikes on the Syrian military airfield in Idlib last night. Yeah, oh. And those are the ones that gave Trump a $400 million airplane as a gift. And they hate Israel's guts. They hate us coming and going from head to toe. And they're tight with Trump. You know, don't think Trump's our friend. Don't think that. Birds of a feather flock together. Trump's envoy, Tom Barak, publicly blames Israel for the unusual overnight strike in Syria and criticizes it. This is an unnecessary escalation. That's from America. Well, what would you do about it? I remember Trump saying, "Oh, if you got any troubles with Erdogan, just let me know. I'm friends with him." Yeah, Trump, sure, you got friends. Erdogan's mad at Trump because he said Trump never fulfilled on the F-35s. From what I remember reading, Trump said he wanted to give him the F-35s, but it got to go through Congress, and it didn't. So he wants to blame Trump. Maybe he thinks Trump was dealing from the bottom of the deck or something, but I don't think so. So the memorandum of understanding, that thing expired, and Trump says he's not seeking to do a new one. He's saying things like, we might have to finish the job, and things like this with Iran. Trump is apparently sitting there twiddling his thumbs, waiting for Iran to collapse economically. If I detect any more spiritual warfare aimed at me, I'm going to do a toss of everybody in 12 of the largest airports in the world. And you idiots doing the spiritual warfare will get the blame from your masters in unclean spirit land, okay? So this is your last warning. One more attempt, and I'm going to do it. You don't hurt me with your crop, by the way, but I do know you're doing it. I'll tell that schmuck Satan you caused it. I have no fear of that moron. Maybe he won't do anything to you. Maybe he'll really punish you. Think about it. No more warnings. Okay. A cruise ship near Oman saw a flash, in other words, some kind of explosion, about 3 nautical miles, that was an estimate, from the cruise ship, it would strongly appear Iran fired the missile, or it could have possibly been a drone, a suicide drone that didn't make it and crashed in the water. Probably a missile, but it could be a drone. More than likely from Iran. Now, cruise ships stay active in the area year round. You know, you get cruise ships, they go to India, they go all over the place. You know, they stop, some cruise ships stop at Arab ports. Uh, you know, they run around over there. I don't think those cruises are popular from North America and from Western Europe, but other parts of the world they'll go there. Africa, Asia, you know, in South America they might want to go there. Not South America really. Between Pentecostal churches, nominal churches, evangelical churches, and Catholic churches, South America and Central America are loaded with those forms of churchianity. So they're not, you know, really big on going to the Muslim countries, nor would they go to Hindu countries or Buddhist countries, you know. So this is a new venture that the lunatics in Iran took. Um, I don't know what, I don't have any specifics on the cruise ship. I don't know what country it was from. It doesn't really matter because it's a civilian, you know, it's a war crime, you know, it's a civilian vessel all the way. And, you know, I believe in healthier times, they go to, I believe, like the UAE, and they would stop there because there's things to do in the UAE. Maybe Egypt gets a lot of cruise ships. They want to look at the pyramids and the ruins and stuff like that. Israel operates a cruise line now. They run old, junky cruise boats. I think they have 2 of them, maybe 3. They look like they're boats from around the late 80s or maybe very early 90s. They refurbish them. Oh, they're safe, you know, but they don't have a lot of balconies. Back then, they weren't building with balconies. The ships were usually running at about 70 to 80,000 tons in that range, sometimes down to 60,000 tons, where today you're going to rarely see a cruise ship under 100,000 tons, a new one. Seeing ships 150,000 tons to even 200,000 tons is not rare. Not at all, they're pretty common. So those are very small boats, and they don't go up very high. They might have 8 or 9 decks over the Lido deck where the swimming pool is, or, you know, it doesn't go very high. And the only cabins that are going to have a balcony are the suites. So you're going to have a window, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but the problem with it, you don't get any fresh air. One of the nicest things about taking a cruise is when you're on the open water, you open up your balcony door and you have really nice fresh ocean air, which is really nice. You know, there's nobody out there in the middle of the ocean polluting the air, you know. So if you were on a sailboat, not a big cruise boat which makes its own odors and stuff, you know, if you were on a sailboat, you would probably smell the air that smelled a lot like what air smelled like, 800 years ago in the countryside, not in a big city. You know, in the big cities 800 years ago, you had a lot of sewage running in the street, a lot of odors from that. You had fires, a lot of odors from that, cooking, a general stench from unsanitary conditions. You know, uh, generally the cities were pretty toxic. Some of the more progressive cities like London may have been better, but not that much. You know, um, not that much. I don't know. Jerusalem would have been maybe populated by 1 or 3,000 people back then, something like that. Um, and it was just basically waste. There wasn't much there. They had some. Well, depending what year. I mean, if you go back to around the early 1800s, you had nothing was built up very much. There was some Arabs that were probably some Jews also that had restaurants and I don't know what you call them, hotels where you could get a room. And they were catering mostly to what they called pilgrims, which were of the Catholic Churchianity faith that would go over there. Uh, the Catholics would walk the path they believe Yeshua walked on the way to his death, and they would walk that. Some of them would whip themselves while they did that, silly things. And there wasn't fighting between the Arabs and the Jews. There was very few of each. It was very sparsely populated. In the late 1800s, they had a train that I think went from Haifa, the port, to Jerusalem, and there were more people living in Jerusalem, and they had built structures for living, and it was building up. Um, 1917, you have Balfour Declaration, then it built up even more. So, but going back in time, I saw lithograph prints a guy made. I believe it was either 1700s or late 1800s, or early 1800s. He was there. There was nothing there. I mean, it was just really nothing. You know, dry, parched land. Nothing was going on. There wasn't a lot of commerce. They weren't manufacturing stuff here. Nothing much going on. Different religions had set up places here, mostly Catholic, but Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, at some point came here and set up shop. Baptists set up shop. And that kind of thing. But Jerusalem was greatly vacated. There was nobody there. Very, very, very small amount of people. And I don't know how many hotels there were. There might have been 4 or 5 or something, or maybe 10. But they were little places. They weren't, big deal, Mark Twain went there in the 1800s, and he said there wasn't much of anything going on over there. I don't remember how they got there. I think most of them took a ship to Haifa. That would have been how they came, I guess. Maybe they were able to take trains from Europe into Turkey, into Lebanon, into Israel, but I don't remember ever reading about a connection like that. Israel's not so high on. They got a good train service here, but it's nothing like what you would see in China or Japan. Nothing like that. That's because we don't have great distances to go. So our trains run 80, 85 miles an hour. We don't have, 180, 200 mile an hour uh, trains. So in Japan and China, they're covering great distance. If you took a big run here and you went from, I don't know, Haifa, let's say, which is up north, to Eilat, that's you could drive it in about 6 hours. Maybe less, maybe five and a half. So what do you need big trains for? You get in a bus, you could get in a car, or they have trains. So anyway, the trains are kind of nice. I believe they have. I've never been on the modern ones here, but my wife's been on them. I believe they have Wi-Fi. They have washrooms where you have a toilet and a sink in there, that kind of thing. Um, but the super fast that we never built. Um, a number of reasons. One reason is Netanyahu could care less about how the people live. I know a lot of you find that obnoxious statement, but that's my experience judging by his actions. When Bennett got into office briefly, Bennett was building or remodeling 7 hotels and wanted to put up something like 400,000 low-cost housing units. Netanyahu would sooner die before he does that for us. Okay? So he's a real piece of garbage. And I don't know if that curse is ever going to lift off us before God gets rid of him. I think that's the only way. Okay, so that's the news, and I got a lot of good Bible stuff to go with you today. I think you'll really enjoy it. Oh, let me take a quick look at the live stream. See if we got people putting up nasty stuff. I took a post down. I didn't block you. I don't know who you were talking about. If any of you guys resent old people, um, just let us know, and we'll pray that the Lord kills you before you get old. Would you like that? Would you like us to do that? I'm being facetious. We're not going to do it, but you can pray to the Lord to kill you before you get old. Does that sound like a good idea, genius? Think you're so smart, huh? All right. I think I cleaned out the nasty children. All right. Oh, the dogs. Please keep the prayers going for Mommy and Beulah too. Mommy and Beulah seem to both have diarrhea, and Beulah vomited. It could be stress because we changed the way they're sleeping at night, and it could be Beulah got stressed out. I don't know. But please keep the prayers coming for overall healing for Mommy and Beulah. Mommy's doing pretty good other than the diarrhea. The doctor's got her on some medicine, which is probably causing the diarrhea, prednisone. Not forever, for a little while. And the Bueller, I think, got diarrhea and vomiting from stress, but I could be wrong. Could be she ate something. I don't know what happened, okay? But Beulah's not acting sick, you know. She's running around. Dogs occasionally throw up, and it doesn't really mean a lot with them, you know. So I don't know. She could have ate some junk. I don't know what happened. But please keep the prayers going for both of them. I really appreciate it. I don't want to see Mommy lapse back, and we'll see how we do. Okay, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. All right. But they're eating and drinking and running around and barking, and that's all good. Well, I'm going to start with Ezekiel 43, and we're going to get like an overview of the temple, and then we're going to get into a lot of details of the temple. We're going to get into the abomination of desolation, where it actually is, what it actually means, and we're going to be using the ancient biblical texts, which I'll explain to you momentarily. I just want to get to the beginning of Ezekiel 43. So we're going to be using translations from the Codex Leningrad, which is the oldest Hebrew Old Testament from 900 AD, and we're going to be using Codex Vaticanus, which is, they took fragments and scraps of the Septuagint, which was the Hebrew converted to Greek, done in the year 250 BC, before Yeshua came to Israel. I didn't say came to earth, I said came to Israel, didn't I? Ha ha ha. And it's they put it together and they formed a rebuilt Septuagint from actual fragments and scraps of the original. So those are the two oldest, very, very good witnesses to the Old Testament. Very, very good. And I gave very strict instructions to AI to translate them into English. Okay, and I controlled how the translation was done using secular sources, no church translation materials, no church doctrines, raw English without smoothing. But I think it smoothed it anyway. But smoothing makes it more readable. But okay, that's not twisting it or anything. All right, so we're in Ezekiel 43:1, and he led me to the gate facing towards the east. And now the temple's already there. Okay, so like I say, it says in Malachi 3, the glory God of Israel will come to his temple suddenly. Suddenly. This is it. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel. The glory of the God of Israel is Michael, the high angel. Okay? That's the one that was with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. He made like a cloud over them in the day to keep the sun off them, and at night like a fire to keep them warm in the desert. The desert could have radical temperature drops at night and rises. Okay? And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. Now, not the eastern gate, he's coming from the eastern direction, which is the Mount of Olives, is in that direction, I believe. And his voice was like the sound of many waters. That's loud. And the earth shone with his glory. Let's read it in the Greek from the Codex Vaticanus. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came by the eastern way, not the eastern gate, from the east, of course, then into the east, through the eastern gate, the eastern way, and there was a voice of the camp, as the voice of many repeating themselves. That's vague, that's not a good translation. And the earth shone like light from his glory. Arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord has risen upon thee. Isaiah 60 verse 1. Same thing. But we shine too. Arise, shine, it means for us to emanate forth light. Because we have the everlasting life at this point. When he shows up. Maybe not when the temple was there, though. Oh, when it first came. Okay. And according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, like the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city, and visions like the visions that I saw by the canal Chebar, that's up in Babylon. And I fell upon my face. And the glory of Jehovah came into the house, that's the temple. It's called a house because this is a house not made by hands, by human hands. If you read Ezekiel 47, the last 3 verses, you realize that Jehovah places this house, this temple in Jerusalem. It's called a house because the glory of God of Israel lives in it. When Solomon built this temple, the glory of God came in and anointed it with the glory cloud and left. He never lived in it. Zerubbabel's temple, he was never in it. Herod's temple, he was never in it. Not even for a minute. Okay, and a spirit wind, okay, and the Greek is, and the spirit took me up, lifted me, it says in the Hebrew, lifted me up, and brought me into the inner court. These are visions, of course, not literal really happening. And brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of Jehovah filled the house. That's like what happened with Solomon's temple, but he stays in this house. He resides there. Now you got to understand how I would consider it very hard for him to have to come down here and stay in this house. I don't think it's an easy thing for him. It's a big sacrifice he made for us. And I heard one speaking to me, but I believe Jehovah told him to do it too. But it's still, we have to be appreciative of what he's doing. It coming down from heaven as the head angel to this is, but he does it for us. Okay, and you got to remember that. All right, so you got to be respectful of what he does for us. And I heard one speaking to me from the house while a man was standing beside me. And he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the sons of Israel forever. And the Greek uses the same word, forever. And the house of Israel shall no longer defile my holy name, they nor their kings, by their prostitution and by the corpses of their kings in their high places. Now, he eventually transitions from the temple into New Jerusalem, and in Revelation 21:22, you see him on a throne next to Yeshua's also on a throne in New Jerusalem, so he just transitions over. Okay. And he's referred to as our reward, because we had him once and then he comes back. How are you going to make war with him? You can't. You couldn't hurt him, In placing their threshold with my threshold and their doorposts beside my doorpost with only the wall between me and them, they defiled my holy name by their abominations. That was in the past. Which they committed, so I consumed them in my anger. Now let them put far away their prostitution and the corpses of their kings from me, and I will dwell in their midst forever. You, son of man. Why does he say forever? Well, first the temple, then then in New Jerusalem, and then he's in heaven with us. We're all up in heaven, him included. Right? Okay. You, son of man, describe the house to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their lawlessness, their iniquities, and let them measure the pattern. See, measure the pattern. We don't get any instructions to build this temple like Moses got for the tabernacle. We don't get any, because we don't build it. It comes down. We build the grounds around it, the fence, we build the altar, and we are given instructions how to build the altar, but not the temple. If they are ashamed of all that they have done, make known to them the design of the house, its arrangement, its exits, its entrances, all its forms, all its statues, all its forms, and all its laws. There's laws pertaining to this next temple, which obviously is not in Moses' law because there was no temple, there was a tabernacle. So we're not on Moses' law. Okay, all its forms and all the laws, and write it in write it in their eyes that they may keep its whole form and all its statutes and do them. Okay? This is the law of the house upon the top of the mountain. Now we're going to be talking about that on top of the mountain. Now, I need to explain to you the previous temples, which was Solomon's temple, numero 1, uno, numero dos, 2, Zerubbabel's temple, numero tres, or 3, is Herod's temple. You could go un, deux, trois, in French, or whatever language, you want to talk about. Eins, zwei, drei, in German, there's been 3 temples. This is numero 4. Quattro, 4. Okay? This is the law of the house upon the top of the mountain. All its territory all around shall be most holy. So the territory all around is a holy place. Now what you learn later is I'll explain to you that the grounds of the temple is 1 mile square. The temple's in the grounds. It's bigger than any other temple we ever had. Huge, 1 mile square. That's huge. All around shall be most holy. Behold, this is the law of the house. And these are the measurements of the altar in cubits to cubit, being a cubit and a handbreadth, the base a cubit and a cubit the width, and its border on its edge is around 1 span, and this is the height of the altar, and from the base on the ground to the lower ledge 2 cubits, and the width 1 cubit, and from the smaller ledge to the larger ledge 4 cubits, and the width 8 cubit. And now there's a regular cubit and a big cubit. I think the regular cubit is from here to here, here to here. But there's another kind of cubit. So I'm not an expert on the measurements of these things. Okay. And the earth, 4 cube, the earth, the H-E-A-R-T, the hearth, the earth, whatever. 4 cubits, and from the hearth, that's probably where the fires were. and towards and upward 4 horns. And the earth, the hearth, I guess earth, 12 long by 12 wide, square in its 4 sides. So I guess it was 12 of these, pretty good size, you know. If I was going to measure myself to make nunchuckers, I would go from here to here. Just interesting. And the ledge, 14 long by 14 wide, and on its 4 sides, and the border around it, half a cubit, and its base a cubit all around, and its steps facing east. See, we're getting the directions to build the altar because we build the altar. That's not attached to the temple. It's in the inner courtyard where you got the eastern side where there's steps to go into the temple on the east, and you go down the steps into the courtyard, the inner courtyard, and then you would, let's say we're facing the temple, you would be to your left. If you went down the steps and you were standing right at the last step on the ground, you would be going southwest direction to get to the altar. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says Adonai Yehovah, these are the statutes. These are the statutes of the altar in the day it is made to offer. See, it is made, we make it, to offer burnt offerings upon it and to sprinkle blood upon it. And you shall give to the Levitical priests who are from the seed of Zadok, who draw near to me to minister to me, declares the Lord, declares Adonai Yehovah, a young bull for a sin offering. So we're not in the age of grace anymore, but we're still under grace, I guess, but we're doing offerings again. And Yeshua is still up in heaven, and it says, if he were on earth, he'd be no high priest. So when he comes, when we're in New Jerusalem, there is no temple. It says that in Revelation 21, and there's no need, because Yeshua paid the price once and for all for everybody's sins, so we don't need it anymore, but not till we're with him. It doesn't work. Okay. You have the Levites, and then you have the Kohanim. So all Kohanim, descendants of Aaron, are Levites, but not all Levites are Kohanim. Then you go to the Zadokites. The Zadokites are Kohanim, and Kohanim are Levites. But not all Levites are Zadokites, and not all Kohanim are Zadokites. If you can follow that. It's sort of like a logic tautology, if you know what that is. So anyway, and you shall take from its, I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry. I studied logic in college, and very few people ever did. I shouldn't have brought that up. It just gives you a kind of a roadmap of what's going on, the way you can understand it. Forgive me. B'Shem Yeshua Mashiach. And you shall take from its blood and put it on its 4 horns and on the 4 corners of the ledge and on the borders, on the border all around. Thus you shall cleanse it and make atonement for it. And you shall take the bull of the sin offering and burn it at the appointed place of the house outside the sanctuary. So the appointed place would probably be where the altar is, you know. I'm guessing on that. Let's see. Yeah, I would assume it goes to the altar. And on the second day, so this is how to cleanse the altar is talking about that. And on the second day, you shall offer a young male goat without blemish for a sin offering, and they shall cleanse the altar as they cleansed it with the bull. When you have finished cleansing it, you shall offer a young bull without blemish, and a ram from the flock without blemish. And you shall bring them near before Jehovah. And the priests shall throw salt upon them and offer them up as a burnt offering to Jehovah. See, there's a salt covenant where you salt the meat and it pulls the blood out that you're sacrificing to Jehovah. But that's only for sacrificial meat on the altar, not for people to prepare their own food that way. And the rabbis with the Talmud have twisted it to get the people to do that. 25. 7 days you shall prepare a goat for a sin offering daily. And a young bull and a ram from the flock without blemish shall be prepared. 7 days they shall make atonement for the altar and purify it for 7 days. And they shall fill the hand, consecrate it. And when the days are completed, it shall be that on the 8th day and onward, the priests shall make your burnt offerings and your peace offerings upon the altar, and I will accept you, declares Adonai Jehovah. He will accept them. It's in Israel that he accepts you. All right, so we did that. Now I want to go through descriptives about this temple. Okay, so let's get started on that. All right. We're going to cover a lot of things now about the temple that I don't think I ever taught. Okay. So I told you had Solomon's temple, then Zerubbabel's temple, then Herod's temple. Those are the three previous temples. I don't know why they're calling it the third temple when we've already had three temples. They're confused, and they're saying that Herod's temple was a rebuild of Zerubbabel's. That's absurd, really. Herod's temple was way, way, way more than Zerubbabel's. All right. The three temples, Solomon, Zerubbabel, and Herod's, were built on what's called Mount Moriah. Moriah. You could say it in English, Mount Moriah. Maria. Har Maria. You would say Mount Maria. Mariah, Maria, whatever. Okay. To potato, tomato. All right. We're talking English and Hebrew here. All right. These three temples were built there, and this Temple Mound is, east of the mound. The Mound of Olives is east of it, and it's let's rough cut the elevation at about 2,500 feet. Okay, that's it. All right. Now I want to show you why Mount Moriah is not going to be used again. Okay, for this next temple. So we'll get a little background. 2 Chronicles 3 verse 1. It says, "Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah." The summit area would have been prepared and leveled and so forth. Now, it's thought that Abraham sacrificing his son was over there, on Mount Moriah. That's the thought. I'd have to dig deeper. I don't know. I was taught that, I went with someone up to Mount Moriah, which is where the Dome of the Rock and all that crap is, and the guy was sitting there saying, well, Abraham, and, there's the sun, and then there's the goat, and, it was pretty touching. Okay, Zerubbabel's temple, after the Babylon exile, it was rebuilt on the site of Solomon's temple, Mount Moriah again. There used to be a hotel in Jerusalem called Moriah Hotel. That's the one I stayed at when I first got here in the 90s. On the prepared temple site. Okay. Herod's temple, he expanded the Mount Moriah and the platform and all that stuff. But Solomon's, the place where Solomon held judgments was there as well. So it was also on Mount Moriah. Okay? So the three of them were on Mount Moriah. Okay? They were, of course, on level ground on Mount Moriah. They weren't built on a slope, It was flat. It's flat up there. So 2,500 feet or so is not a very substantial mountain, okay? So the next temple is placed on a mountain also. Uh, but it doesn't seem to lend itself to Mount Moriah. Ezekiel 40, verse 2. In the vision of God brought he me, this is King James, goofy English, brought he me, he brought me, no, we're going to say brought he me, into the land of Israel and set me upon a very high mountain. Very high mountain. Okay. Um, Ezekiel 43, verse 12. Upon the top of the mountain, the whole limit thereof round about shall be most holy. The land, all the land will be most holy, is what he's saying. So unquestionably, Ezekiel's temple, the next temple, is going to be on a mountain. If anybody tries to tell you that this is just a spiritual depiction, I mean, laugh at him. It's a farce. I never heard any one of these goofs tell you what it means. It's nonsense. No. You have this next temple described in, talks about from Ezekiel 40 to 48, from Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11. You read about it in Zechariah 14, and you read about it in the whole book of Joel, and it's supposed to be just a spiritual depiction. Yeah, sure, yeah. And I got a bridge that connects New York and London, I'll show you. Okay, is that mountain, okay. Ezekiel refers to it as a very high mountain, which is not Mount Moriah. It's not a very high mountain. The Mount of Olives right next to it is higher. Zechariah 14:10 says, the surrounding land will be turned into a plain, while Jerusalem is lifted up. Wow. Okay. That sounds like new heaven and new earth to me at the appearing. Isaiah 2, verse 2, chapter 2, verse 2 of Isaiah. The mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills. Okay, so this is not Mount Moriah. It's probably right in that general area, though, but it's not Mount Moriah. Maybe he'll put the mountain on top of Mount Moriah. And goodbye, Dome of the Rock. Okay. It would get crushed. So Jerusalem and the Temple Mount become greatly elevated. You listen to this? Jerusalem's about 2,500 foot elevation. Now, become greatly elevated. So that means Jerusalem is 10, 12 degrees cooler in the summer, maybe even 15, but 10 or 12 probably. It also doesn't have a lot of humidity, which helps. So you can use a, what do you call those things with the fan, with the water? A swamp cooler. Ezekiel's temple occupies the leveled summit that would be on a transformed mountain, I guess. Be on the mountain. So the sacred area, that's not the building of the temple, not the altar, the whole piece of land around it with the courtyards and the walls and everything else. That the courtyard, the walls are just the inner, they're around the temple and the inner courtyard and then the outer courtyard. But the land is a square mile, a mile wide, a mile long. And you have to understand that's big. So this is not simply we're going to flip, he's going to drop another building right where Herod's temple was. It's way more complicated. Okay. In Ezekiel 42, verse 15 to verse 20, that's 42 verses 15 to 20, the outer sacred enclosure is described as 500 by times 500. If the Hebrew measurement is understood as 500 reeds, with Ezekiel's reed being around 6 long cubits. Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 5, that works out to approximately 500 reeds by 500 reeds times 10.5 feet equals 5,250 feet, and that's just about a mile, isn't it? Or maybe precisely a mile. That's right about what a mile is, or you could call it 1.6 kilometers by 1.6 kilometers. Okay. And so that those grounds are larger than what we call the Temple Mount now, where you see the Dome of the Rock and all the abominations that they built, all the disgusting things. That is not a mile squared. It's a lot smaller. Maybe it's about a quarter mile square or something, not even. Maybe, I don't know. Something like that. I've been there quite a few times. Not a million times. I've been there several times. The Temple Mount today, as we call it, is comprised of about 35 acres. You could get into discrepancies with how big a reed is, but I think this is a pretty good idea. Um, I'm no expert on biblical measurements, though. Okay. The present area is roughly 740 meters, about 2,430 feet above sea level. So it's really not, a very high thing. And it's not the highest mountain around Jerusalem, which is a big, because it's supposed to be the top of the mountains, and it certainly is not, this Mount Moriah. Okay. The Mount of Olives goes up a little bit higher than that, 2,600 feet above sea level. But when you're on the Mount of Olives and you look at the Temple Mount, you're looking down at it. For some reason, you've got more elevation on the Mount of Olives. So, remember in Ezekiel 42, it's referring to the location of the temple, a very high mountain, the next temple I'm talking about. Together with Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2, which says, the Lord's house will be exalted above the hills. Ezekiel's entire holy allotment in chapters 45 and 48 is much larger still, on the order of tens of miles across, depending on the cubit. But that's something different. Then comes the question of Revelation 11. Now, in the next temple, Ezekiel's temple, there's a gate, and the gate in, is a passageway from the inner courtyard to the outer courtyard, and it's on the northern wall, on the northern side. There is no such thing in Solomon's temple. Zerubbabel's temple didn't even have the courtyards with walls, nor Herod's temple. It's unique to Ezekiel's temple. And that is where the image of jealousy is, which is what they incorrectly call the abomination of desolation, which I'm going to clear up for you in a minute. In Ezekiel chapter 40, verses 20 to 23, there is a northern gate through which one enters the outer court. Okay. The inner north gate, which you find in Ezekiel 40, chapters 35 to 37, directly farther inward is another north gate, giving access to the inner court. Okay, what we're concerned with here is the courtyard connecting the inner to the outer, the inner courtyard connecting to the outer courtyard by a gate at the north. That's where the abomination of desolation, which is an incorrect translation, by the way, and I'll show you that. That's where that thing is, that statue piece of junk. Okay, in the gate between the inner and outer courtyard. It does not wind up in the holiest of holies. Sorry, church world, it doesn't do that. So this temple is actually much larger and grander than any of the previous temples. Now, we don't know if it's going to have see-through gold in there, or I don't know what it's going to have, but it's going to be pretty good. Rest assured. So the other temples don't match Ezekiel's temple at all. So you can't, architecturally, you can't let these people try to convince you that Ezekiel's temple is Herod's, or I don't know what the Satan bots will try, but don't let them fool you. Now in Revelation 11, the first two verses talk about a temple. And it doesn't explicitly tell us, you know, hey, this is Ezekiel's temple or anything like that. But it does, it's referred to as the temple of God. So I'm thinking that is Ezekiel's temple. It goes, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar, and them that worship there. But the court which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not. That's the outer courtyard. So if you're reading this the way I am as a future temple, because it's talking about the two witnesses which are future. So from when John wrote it, I would say that it's the next temple. Um, Now there's counter arguments to that. It says Revelation 11 verse 2 says the outer courtyard is given to the Gentiles, the heathen, who tread the holy city underfoot 42 months. That's the end of the second 70 is what we're talking about here. So I think it lends itself. Not not the opposite, but they'll tell you it doesn't work. You know. Somebody might think this is the temple of God in heaven that comes down to earth. I have no reason to believe that. I don't think so. Because there's, there's depictions of the temple in heaven while I believe this temple's on earth. So I don't go that route. It's on the table.
I know, I said hey. None of it's mine.
What?
None of it's mine.
None of it?
None of it.
Then the next box is also becoming, then it has yours in it. I didn't look through it, I'm sorry. I just opened it.
I'm sorry, I've been out for so long too.
Now I want to discuss the words that the church world has built up called the abomination of desolation. I think we'll be going to Matthew 24, verse 15. The raw, unsmooth dialogue or the words is, therefore, when you see the detestable thing making desolate, which he spoke, Daniel the prophet spoke, we would say spoke of, in holy place, the one reading, let him understand. Now, let's put it in readable English now. Therefore, when you see the detestable thing making desolate, which Daniel the prophet spoke of standing in a holy place. See, all the grounds is a holy place, and the gate between the inner and outer courtyard, which is where this piece of crap statue gets put, is holy ground. And the heathen in the outer courtyard could look at the thing in the gate, you know. A holy place, the one reading, let him understand. Now, that's the Salkinson in the Hebrew calling it a detestable thing. That's the real translation. Now, with Delitzsch working from the Greek, from the Codex Vaticanus, from the Septuagint, we'll see Delitzsch refers to it the same way. Uses actually the same word. So the Hebrew is, here is, no, wait. Therefore, when you see the detestable, desolating thing, this is the Greek, I believe, the thing spoken by the hand of Daniel, the prophet, standing in a place of holiness, and the discerning one will understand. So it's in the holy place where it's placed. It's not the temple. It says the holy place. It's not in the house, not in the temple. You know, it says the holy place, which is very consistent with where it is. Matthew 24:15 actually says the abomination stands inside the temple building, but I don't know how it could be the king. Okay, hold on. Salkinson's Hebrew does not say that. Oh, it's the King James screwing it up. Yeah. It specifies holy place. That's the way it should read. When you read Ezekiel chapter 8, it tells you in 2 or 3 places, it tells you exactly where it is in that gate. So the King James, again, is making bad mistakes all over the place. So we can translate what we see now from Ezekiel chapter 8, where it talks about the image provoking to jealousy. See, so people read an image provoking to jealousy and they say, oh, that's not the abomination of desolation. Well, there really is. When you correct the translation, there is no abomination of desolation. Those are words the church made up. Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 3 and 5. In the Leningrad Codex, oh, the stinking iPad moved. Hold on. Stupid moron thing. Okay, let me get back where I was. And behold, from northward to the gate of the altar, the image of the jealousy, this one at the entrance. So it's the northern entrance. That's the actual Hebrew breakdown of what it says. You could also phrase it, and behold, from the north of the gate of the altar, this image of the jealousy at the entrance. You see, the altar is the inner courtyard, and when it says the gate of the altar, that one means the gate in the north that you use to get to the altar. So. The image of the jealousy is actually pretty close. That's what the King James says. That's actually pretty close to the actual Hebrew. The Codex Vaticanus, the Greek, the Septuagint, let's see how they phrase it. Verse 3, Ezekiel 8, verse 3. Where was pillar monument of the one acquiring okay, so it's a pillar monument. It's a statue. See how when you study what it really says, you learn so much more. It's a statue. Could put it, this way, to the forecourt entrance of the inner gate, well, the gate for the inner courtyard, the gate looking towards north, or toward north, where was the pillar of the one acquiring, possessing. That's different from the Hebrew to some extent. Pillar stele, whatever a stele is, of the one acquiring, possessing, and it's the Hebrew is image of the jealousy, the one thing causing jealousy. So they're not completely lined up, but it's not the abomination of desolation. There is no such wording. That's church translations. A standing stone pillar monument, or a statue of some sort, or an idol, Ezekiel 8 verse 5. The Greek reads, and he said to me, Son of man, lift your eyes towards the north. And I lifted my eyes towards the north, and behold, I looked from the north toward the eastern gate. So there is no image of jealousy in the Greek in this verse. In the Codex Leningrad, it says, gate of the altar, this image of the jealousy at the entrance. See, it's in there in the Hebrew. The Greek has instead from the north towards the eastern gate. He's going on an angle for some reason. I'm not really thinking that's a good thing. Well, I thought I would just bring that stuff out. I think it was worthwhile covering. Let's go see what's going on in the live stream. What I've got a block. It attracts a lot of attention because they don't want any truths getting revealed, you know. Your mother used to tell you about the temple, huh? Okay, that's cool. All right. I guess the bad guys went away. So, I'll do more about the temple, but I think we covered enough today. Ezekiel 45 would be the next one to go through, which talks about the anointed prince in the next temple and the glory of God of Israel, and how people go through the temple on Shabbat. They walk through. I mean, it would be pretty interesting. And we could cover the Ezekiel 8 to 11, but that's a big cover, so it'll have to be different. But it's worthwhile since we're talking about the temple, you know. All right. Malachi 3 talks about the temple too. So that's another place it is. So it's all through the Bible. Okay, so it's rather insane to sit there and say this is spiritual, we're never going to have another temple. That's church talk, see? That's church talk. That's all that is. They don't want, why do they do this? They don't want anybody to see that Israel has a role in the future that's so significant. They don't want that. They don't want you going to Israel. They don't want you thinking about Israel. They want you thinking about them, the church. Okay? They don't want you understanding. Okay? Because then you're going to be, all of a sudden, Israel's going to be on your mind. If you understood the next Exodus. If you understood all Israel shall be saved. If you understood that if you're a believer, you're in the real Israel and you'll be here. And if you knew Ezekiel 47 and you realize you're going to get an equal share of the land just like an Israelite, and God says you're to be treated just like any other Israelite, and you're incorporated into one of the tribes, you know, what are you going to need the church for? See? Okay? All right. So one more reminder, please, because it's important to me and my wife. Please pray for Mommy Dog, Mommy the dog, and Beulah too, because Beulah had an upset stomach and was throwing up, and I think she might have had some diarrhea. And Mommy had some diarrhea too, which could be from the medicine, would be from the vet. I don't know. But the medicine's not permanent. So please pray for the dogs to be happy, healthy, and whole long time and heal up, and long term and heal up. I really appreciate it. I don't think there's much wrong with Beulah, but Mommy really needs the prayer. Although she's eating and drinking and running around like a big shot, we still see little signs that she's not all there herself. Little changes, a little bit, but please keep the prayers going. I thank you, and please keep praying for me to get good success with the public and private welfare organizations in Israel. Everything seemed to look good, and then yesterday nothing happened, and I don't know what's going on. So I got to go back in and start stirring the pot again. It's just laborious to try to get these people to do anything. You know, they say they're going to do things, they're going to help you, and then you fall down and nothing happens. It's unbelievable. All right. So please pray for that. And we are driven by offerings, and I'll get a prayer out for us. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua, well, let me pray for the mommy and the Beulah dog, and you can agree with the prayer, or do your own prayer, or agree with the prayer and do your own prayer also. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for the mommy dog and Beulah. I pray for both of them to be healed and happy, healthy, and whole, and have no ailments or problems, to have their, stamina and vigor, be strong again, and happy, healthy, and whole, and very healthy. And I submit this prayer to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with it, even if it's a video, you watch it, and you can do your own prayer or both, agree and do your own prayer. But I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers, and their households to be, that we have your peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, rest, and Shabbat, shalom, peace. And I pray we have from you, strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power flow through us and our animals and pets, and keep them healed and healthy and whole. And I pray for ourselves and our animals and pets to be safe, secure, and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for those that need a place to live, that they get it. I pray for the one person that's waiting on moving into their new place, that everything happens flawlessly and quickly without any problems. And I pray for all those that need a place to live, get a place to live. Everyone who needs a job gets a job. Everyone who needs clients and customers for their business gets that. And I pray we all have adequate funds, money, and then extra. And I pray we can all understand the scriptures better. And I pray I could do better videos and better teaching of the Bible, and make the deceptions and lies of the nations more obvious and understandable. And I pray this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that if you like. Okay. Now let's do some spiritual warfare. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I loose from me and my wife and all the true believers and their families and households any unclean spirit in any of these people is loosed out of the people immediately, never to return again. And if there's any evil spiritual warfare coming from unclean spirits, or people serving unclean spirits, or witches, whatever, directed at any of these people, it is null and void, of no value, no effect forever, shall never return in the same way or even a similar way for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that, even if it's a video, if you're a believer. That's about what we got. So remember, preparatory for the days ahead is, of course, the temple too. Read Malachi 3. The glory of God will appear in his temple suddenly, So the temple precedes him. And I believe Ezekiel 43 is him coming into his temple. Yes, that's what it is. That's the depiction. Okay. And since he's saying the people are going to be so good, I think the appearing in the clouds has already happened. two witnesses may be taking care of the enemies. That's the day of vengeance, and then when that's over, and Yeshua appears, then the glory of God comes as a reward. And that should also bring the new heaven and the new earth. So I hope you got something out of that. And I thank you for your prayers. And like I say, a lot of times I think I write on your prayers. And now Mommy Dog and Bueller are writing on your prayers too. Okay, guys, so I'm